Hey, how's it going, friends? Welcome to VR Revelations. Thank you for tuning in once again. Make sure you give the video a like and make sure you subscribe for future coverage. So, a couple of videos ago, or rather, a couple of days ago, I covered news that Russia pretty much had taken control of the city of Soledar, that is famously known for its giant salt mine tunnels. These are a massive system of tunnels that can fit a lot of military personnel inside of them and even tanks. And it is very well fortified. As a matter of fact, they're pretty much indestructible from any bombs or missiles. And so Soledar is a very strategic point. But unfortunately, as I said in that video, the Ukrainians were pushed into those mines, and some Russian, generals or the leadership were saying that if the Ukrainian soldiers ran into the mines, they should just block the entrances with cement until they surrendered, as they have previously done before in other areas. Now, we have more developing news here coming out of War News 24/7. Looks like in the next 24 hours, pretty much all Ukrainian soldiers are expected, or rather, they've been told themselves by the Ukrainian leadership to leave the city because Russia is about to encircle it, and they pretty much have complete control of Soledar. And so, for those of you who might say this is just Russian propaganda, as there's always those who can't believe what is going on, because again, the truth is stranger than fiction, a simple Google of Soledar will bring up all the other news sources. Yes, even Western propaganda news sources. We can see here we have the BBC News reporting this just 47 minutes ago. Now, it's 4:22 a.m. right now, guys. January 10th, the year of our Lord, 2023. So again, I'm making this very early in the morning. And if you actually Google it, you'll see all these news sources reporting on it, okay? I'm not just going to bring you news from Russian news sources, right? Or in this case, this Greek website. But I do like looking at foreign sources because they tend to be a little bit more honest and more detailed with their coverage. I'm surprised that, these other news sources are even reporting this because they only like to report on things that are positive. But as you can see, they haven't been able to report any positive news for quite a while now, since Ukraine keeps on losing territory to the Russians. And so we have the BBC reporting on this here. Russia controls most of pounded salt mine town. Soledar says UK. Russia is likely to finally control most of the salt mining town of Soledar in Ukraine's east after a months-long battle with Ukrainian forces. So it took the Russians a month to take over the town, the UK's Ministry of Defense says. So anyways, let's leave that Western propaganda news source there and go back to this Greek website, War News 24/7, and let's go ahead and read the information here. Now, Zelensky, of course, has said that he's sort of like every time they lose a town, he touts it as a strategic retreat, and tries to make it out to be some sort of victory. But it's getting harder and harder for them to come up with those excuses the more that the Russians continue to advance. And so the Western media has pretty much gone silent right now in what's going on in Ukraine because there is nothing good to report. And at some time this year, my prediction is that it's going to become too obvious to everyone that is keeping an eye on the situation, and it's going to become an embarrassment for the U.S. and for NATO, since, in my opinion, they are not going to go all in for Ukraine. as is evident by their refusal to send their best weapons over to Ukraine for fear of nuclear war, which I don't blame them. But anyways, let's jump right into it. Russian forces broke through the last defense lines of the 17th Ukrainian Brigade and the 60th Combat Detachment and entered the settlements of Blagodonoye and Peraskovietka, cutting off the Bakhmut-Zversk road as well as the M03 leading to Slavyansk. In the next 24 hours, the official withdrawal of the Ukrainian forces and the handover of the city of Soledar to the Russian army are expected. Again, Ukrainian officials have warned their forces to leave the city because it's about to be taken over by the Russians. And now they're saying that, its strategic importance is doubtful when, again, when they were fighting for it, they were touting it as a very strategic, city with the salt mines and, the possibility there for a defense in the mines and all of that. And now that they lost it, they're trying to, bring into question just how important, the city is. So they're trying to minimize the loss, of course. Again, I don't blame them. Any nation that is losing any war is going to try to minimize any battle that is lost. All nations throughout history do that, right? You're never going to admit defeat until it becomes absolutely obvious. At the last defenses of the Ukrainians, have been swept away, and now the city is surrounded on all sides. Zelensky has already prepared the ground. So here's a quote from Zelensky. Thank you to all our soldiers for the battle they fought in Soledar and withstand new and stronger attacks. Not a single wall has been left standing in the entire city. Because the Russians bombed it. Thanks to the battle they fought, we gained time and strength for Ukraine. So again, he's trying to put a positive spin there. But as you can see there, it's getting more difficult by the day. The Ukrainian journalist Budazov warned a while ago that Ukrainians in the urban center of Soledar are in danger of being cut off, noting that Soledar's communication with Bakhmut is now difficult. The alarm was raised shortly after Russian and Allied forces took control of the Yurchina Gora Hill, cutting off the Ukrainians' main supply route into the city center of Soledar. The Ukrainian journalist's remarks came as Russian forces captured Pidorodny, Klizivka, and entered Paraskovievka, Krasnaya Gora, and Blagonoye west of Soledar. North of Bakhmut, Russian forces have secured the hill next to Podgorodne and have taken control of the northern hills overlooking the town of Krasna Hora, where fighting has begun in its southern part. The pressure now exerted on the Ukrainian army is enormous, right? So they're going to have to retreat. They're already being warned. And, of course, they're going to lose Bakhmut, and the Russians are continuing to advance. It seems that the entire Eastern Front is collapsing for the Ukrainians like dominoes. Inside the town of Soledar, Russian and Allied forces continue to advance from 3 different axes, taking control of several buildings, closing in on the town's community center. From the north, Russian troops have reached Soledar's hospital. We have a video here of Ukrainian tank at the Artem Sol industry in the Soledar salt mines. So you can see the tank here on the left. Let's go ahead and take a look at this 22-second video here. Right, so you could see the tank there firing shots at Russians possibly in the buildings there, making a last stand. Again, guys, in all wars, there's brave men. Nobody can bring that into doubt, even in the most evil of wars, such against the Nazi Germany, right? You can't say that the Nazis didn't fight a ferocious fight, however evil their ideology may have been. There's always brave soldiers on both sides. However, there always has to be a losing side. And so you can't say that the Ukrainians aren't fighting bravely, but they are losing ground by the day. That is the reality. So it looks like we have another video here of soldiers here on the front lines. Let's go ahead and take a look. Now, I can't tell if these are Russian or Ukrainian. If somebody knows what they're saying out there, let me know. But it does seem that they are wearing blue bands, Ukrainian colors, so looks like they are Ukrainian soldiers there. Looks to be like an infantry vehicle there. I'm not sure if that's Russian or Ukrainian. But you can definitely see how slowly it's moving and very effectively there with that machine gun as we see the ruins of the city. So let's see. Screams of anguish from the Ukrainians. According to journalists embedded with the Ukrainian forces along the Soledar front, the central command of the Ukrainian army told them to leave immediately. So here we have it, right? Reporters are saying that the central command of the Ukrainian army told them to leave immediately due to the high possibility of Russian forces encircling the city within the next 24 hours. Taras Berezovets, a Ukrainian officer, pointed out, "It is very difficult in Soledar right now. The situation there is more difficult than in Bakhmut. The enemy attacks in small groups, usually up to 8 people armed with small arms, RPG, and Pro-A Shmel. The attacks on our position are coming in waves." So according to these Ukrainian soldiers, or to this, according to this Ukrainian officer, the Russians are, sending waves of small units here of up to 8 men equipped with RPGs. So that's very interesting there. Of course, I did make a video where we had reportings that the Russian military was going to reorganize and change up their strategy a little bit and send bigger units with more men, as opposed to, how they started the war. But it looks like they are still using those type of tactics here, but it looks like they are sending these units, more frequently in waves. Ukrainian reporter and editor-in-chief of Censor.net, Yuri Butsov, reported the enemy managed to advance and gain control of the main supplying lines in Soledar. It is not a complete encirclement, but the situation is becoming critical. There are now reports that Russian forces have broken through the defense lines of the 17th Brigade in the 60th Combat Detachment north of Bakhmut and are advancing on the towns of Krasnogora and Paraskovivka. The 46th Airborne Brigade and elements of the Border Guards, the SSO, and the 17th Tank Brigade are inside the city fighting for every ounce. The enemy has a large number of casualties but continues to advance. Of course, take this with a grain of salt. Of course, that's the Ukrainians saying that. The Russian forces are focusing on the sides. They want to surround the Ukrainian troops. New reserves of Russian airborne forces were deployed to bypass the city today. The Ukrainian 10th Mountain Brigade is on the north and northeast flank doing its best. Finally, there are reports of a transfer of Russian forces from the Bakhmut front to Soledar, which would allow them to put more pressure on the northern part of the city of Bakhmut. And it looks like we have a tweet here from a Twitter account, the Euro-Asianist, and it says, the armed forces of Ukraine who retreated from Soledar are watching the fierce battle in the center of this town from nearby heights. Say goodbye to it. So, it looks like we have a video here of these Ukrainian forces watching as some of their soldiers are still in the city fighting as the Russians get ready to take complete control here. So let's go ahead and take a look.
Soledar. Soledar, хлопці.
Alright, again, I don't speak that language, but you could definitely hear the Ukrainian soldiers sort of lamenting there, saying Soledar. So, yes, let's see. We have more video here. It says, okay, the Russians entered the settlement. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Right, so it looks like it's just footage of them entering the settlement there. It says, Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine confirmed a Russian attack on Pereskovevka. Right. Okay, so we have more video further down here. It says, Wagner soldier explains what's happening in Bakhmut Soledar. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a video, guys. This is a Wagner soldier, part of this Wagner mercenary group that are helping the Russians. And so it looks like he is at the front lines here. We actually have a translation of the situation. Now, I reviewed this before I made this video, of course, and the soldier apparently here is at the front lines right here in Soledar. And he's pretty much a sniper, right? And next to him, he has a camera with a screen on the side where the camera, you know, sort of scans the area. I'm not sure if it's thermal or what, but through the screen, he's able to detect soldiers up to 200 meters. And then he takes his sniper shots, and you'll see him talking about the situation here. So for those watching the video here, you can go ahead and read the translation, which will appear down here.
Короче, вечереет. Работаем. Самый передний край нашей полосы наступления. Вот этот дом один, подъезд наш, ближний к нам. Второй, неизвестно, пустой или не наш. Работаем следующим образом. Вот у нас тепловизионная гляделка Venax Okko. На самые обычные треноги. Запитанная от пауэрбанка, вот провод от банка, вот все, короче, мы ее чуть-чуть наклонили вниз при помощи досочки, двигаем это все вперед, она у нас смотрит в окно, и потихоньку справа налево мы открываем сектор. Первый труп у нас вот в этом окне, вот окно на 3 секции, 200 метров ровно. РПК, магазин на 60 патронов, тепловизор Venax Патриот. Второй труп левее. Высовываться туда не буду, в тот сектор могут появиться новые желающие. То есть прям вот самый передний край. До противника 200 метров. Двое уже есть сегодня. Сейчас ночью, думаю, появится еще. Пополним счет. То есть вот у нас планшетка. На планшетку передается все, что видит камера, и мы, соответственно, метр за метром открываем свой сектор и все видим. Ну и работаем. Пятерка, 200 метров нормально, короткими очередями. Такой вот снайпинг.
So there you have it, guys. A Wagner soldier kind of just sitting there, waiting for the action to start there. As he said, he's using a tablet there with a thermal camera, sort of being his eyes. And whenever he detects a soldier, then he goes ahead and attacks. So, very a stark contrast there as to the, most of the videos you see where it's constant firing, but since, they are taking control here and have pretty much established their control of the city, you can see that now they're sort of just holding their position, trying to see if there are any Ukrainian forces up ahead there. So, very interesting look there into the war there on the front lines there, and the reality of war. So you can see here pictures and maps of the attacks and what direction they are attacking here. Of course, we see these pushes towards the north of the city and also down here from the south. So you can see how the Ukrainians have been warned to leave the city before it is encircled, and the Ukrainian forces are trapped. Of course, in that previous video, I talked about how some of the Ukrainian forces were retreating into the tunnels, trying to, make a stand in the tunnels, but it seems that the Russians are aware of this, and their plan is to just seal them in until they surrender there. So I'll definitely keep an eye out on that for more developments. But anyways, there you have it, guys. The city has pretty much officially collapsed, to the Russians here. And again, this is coming from all news sources. As you can see here, Russia controls most of the pounded salt mine town. Soledar, says UK, and you have all these other news sources here. Routers, Russia pushes to capture Ukraine Soledar. Al Jazeera, heavy fighting in Soledar. Washington Post. They're all pretty much reporting, but again, for those that are covering this, it's pretty obvious that the Russians will continue to advance here. And again, you see all these Western news sources pretty much staying silent. They aren't reporting on any victories, on anything about the Ukrainians regaining their land or anything. And all the while, the Ukrainians are sitting there begging the United States and NATO to send their best weapons, their best tanks, and their best, military fighter jets immediately, as Russia continues to advance and take control of these strategic cities amidst the rumors of a large offensive here. So the death blow, I do believe, is going to come here very soon. Again, I think that, the time is coming for NATO and the U.S. to push all their ships to the center of the table to make the decision to see if they are going to go all in. But it is very evident by the fact that they refuse to send their best weapons to the Ukrainians that they are not willing to risk nuclear war over Ukraine, but that, their whole plan here was to squeeze as much as they could out of Ukraine here and sort of use them as a sacrifice. Now, the foolishness of the Ukrainian administration and their leaders was to expect that the Americans and that NATO would actually come into the conflict themselves with boots on the ground to fight in this war. Again, this is just another proxy war for the United States and NATO, and I think this year we're going to see just that, and it's going to be a national embarrassment for the United States and for NATO, just like it's been in other places like Syria, Iraq, all these other places. But again, the Americans, they'll see this as a sort of small victory. Yes, the Ukrainians sacrificed themselves for the greater good, they'll try to say, and the tensions are going to continue. I think this is going to lead to a new world order with the U.S. and its allies. Eventually, this they will face off in a nuclear conflict, but it's not going to be over Ukraine, unfortunately for, the Ukrainians that are hoping that it will be. And in my, about 2 videos ago, I reported on the Ukrainian ambassador, and how he was talking about how, all these other nations need to go all in, how Ukraine depends on them, and that this is the war of the other nations, and how they should ignore Russia's nuclear arsenal. But again, he's very naive. The United States is not ignoring Russia's nuclear arsenal, and that's exactly why they are, in the end, going to let Ukraine fall, in my opinion. But anyways, let me know your thoughts and comments down below, guys. This is just my personal thoughts and analysis from the reports that we are seeing here, and based on my belief that we are living in the end times, and that we are the generation that is going to see nuclear war, but I don't think that it's going to happen over Ukraine. And so that's going to be it for this video, guys. The truth is stranger than fiction. Have a wonderful day, and God bless you.